You're watching or listening to Strangers in Space, and for the next half an hour, maybe, we're going to be talking about whether Billie Piper's Doctor Who or not, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
Oh, hello, I'm John.
Hi, I'm Matt.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Simon.
And late of the BBC News Channel, I'm Steve.
They say you all
Oh,
do it differently.
You're on a channel that's watched by 200,000 people at the best of times.
Three people and a cat, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
If
All
the
right.
cat was awake.
Well, we are here to talk about Billie Piper. There's one other news thing. I mean, this is basically a news roundup. It's not really, it's just about Billie Piper. But ostensibly, it's a news roundup. So there is another news story, which I'm going to get to first. Before I get to the other news story, which we can do in 20 seconds, let's be honest, there's a new guy on the team. So, Ryan, you've got 20 seconds to say A, who you are, and B, how much you've been enjoying this series of Doctor Who.
Okay, so my name's Ryan. I'm a therapist, which I think will be very important in this show. And this season has season 40, as I like to call it, has been a massive improvement on season
Oh,
39.
don't be one of
I'm
those.
not at all. I just felt somebody had to because the
Nobody on
numbering
this
might get reviewed
podcast
again.
has ever had to before.
Yeah, and we don't take notes either, apart from JR, who does take notes occasionally and then
Oh,
complains.
I've
so
started
so
taking notes.
so this is no good then. This is wrong.
This is wrong.
Oh yeah, I've got bullet points. I've got some quotes in front of me. When I've got news on, I tend to have quotes and things in front of me.
I've got some crayons in front of me.
Simon, don't ever change. The other big news story, I suppose, in the 48 hours since the last episode of Doctor Who finished this, we got this trailer for the wall between the land and the sea. I don't know, is there any more to say about it? Then obviously Russell T Davies watched The Shape of Water and thought, this is about 3 hours too short. That's about it, isn't it?
My friend Paul Ebbs, the writer, called it damp torchwood,
Did he?
which I thought was rather nice.
I don't
It was
know.
nice.
Does anybody have an opinion on it?
It was nice to see the outside, so it did feel a bit more outdoorsy and less sort of
Yeah.
just in unit base. So that was good. I wasn't convinced by the water nymph creature.
Is that,
Um,
do we think that's a sea devil or do we
I
think
think
it's like
it's
some
got to be
hybrid
a
or
sea
something?
devil.
Oh,
There
it
was a sea
reminded.
devil in the trailer, wasn't there? Like a regular sea devil. So,
And they kept the secret that Russell Tovey is the Doctor, of course.
Yeah.
they did a very good job of keeping that secret, Steve. Yeah.
Did anyone else get a Babylon 5 vibe from that nymph thing? Because she looked very much like one of the
Yeah.
aliens from the
That
League of
could be
Non-Mind
why I
Moments.
found it so disturbing, because I thought it was like a prehistoric memory, but it's not. It's
It is.
Mm.
What's she called? Elena or something.
Yeah,
The one in
yeah.
particular, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. This reminds me of something, and now you've put a nail on the head of it. I mean, it looks to me a bit like sort of Children of Earth meets Shape of Water, frankly. And
What do people think about the budget?
Again.
oh,
Sorry,
Ryan.
I know. I have John first. I do not have seniority in
No,
this.
No.
no,
The
no.
point
Go.
is, if anybody's speaking at the same time of John, they get priority.
Except JR, to drown out the accent.
Okay. In the interest of diplomacy, I just wonder what people thought about the money because I felt since RTD has come back, it doesn't look like the money's being spent particularly well. There's not a lot of scale, and this one, as you said, was outside, which automatically gives an impression of scale and, by extension, an expression of budget as well. And I just thought, did people think it looked the production values were a bit more, I don't know, tangibly on screen this
I
time?
think it helps that it's set in contemporary, so it's obviously all set contemporary Earth, probably somewhere that looks very much like Wales. So they don't have to spend a lot of the money disguising the fact that it's in Wales, so they can spend the rest of their money on a few helicopters and a
Yeah.
boat and some sea shots and
And the upshot,
underwater photography, presumably.
yeah, probably. But the upshot of that is it looks more real, doesn't it? Because I think that's the trouble with that's the trouble with the Russell T Davies the last couple of years, and probably the first 5 years, frankly. He insists on so much of it being in sets indoors that a lot of the time it just doesn't look real in the way that the Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall eras both looked a lot more real, right?
Mm.
It
'Cause they,
reminded me actually of the Zygon two-parter that Moffat
yeah.
did. Look of it out on cliff tops overlooking the sea and things like that.
I mean, hopefully it'll be good. I guess we'll just wait and
Yeah.
see.
Oh, we will. Well,
Yeah,
somebody at
I had
Quad
the
that I
exact
was
same feeling. I can't quite invest that much, but
no,
I hope it's good. It doesn't look bad.
well,
See, the thing is, we all really liked Children of Earth when it was on, didn't we? But
yeah,
I've
yeah.
not been back, and my sort of my memories of it, they kind of every year they go a bit further down,
Well,
such that
one of the chaps at Quad who watched the episode with us and saw the trailer afterwards was full of how dreadful it was going to be and how awful it was and this, that, and the other. Watch it first, for heaven's sake. But I suppose that the history of spin-offs from Doctor Who is a little mixed, isn't it? Going back to K9 and Company, oh dear. And then we've got Torchwood, which was great in parts and not great in other parts. Sarah Jane Adventures, which
Steve, we're
was
going to have to
great.
dig into this. Are you going to tell us? Just give us
And
one
Classroom was
example
rubbish.
of a part of Torchwood that was great. Just one example.
Well, yeah, they're Children of Earth. Children of Earth.
What about the K9 show, though, Steve?
Hey, what? Oh, the
What about the
Australian cane. Oh my
That's the
heavens!
one.
Yes, I tried to forget that.
Exactly.
With all those Australian kids with outrageous Australian accents pretending it was set in London.
I'm going to say something really controversial here. I think Class is the best Doctor Who spin-off.
Oh no! Oh no!
Did you
There's
get
not
Yeah,
any?
Not enough
we
vodka in this
watched it.
bottle.
It's just disappeared off the iPlayer.
Oh, has it?
Really?
Yeah.
Steve turned into a Coronation Street
I'll
character then
accept
for
it.
a second.
Yeah.
There's
I enjoyed it
Oh
again.
no!
Right, let us talk about Billie Piper. So before we talk about, so that's it. We're done with the war between. We can get back to that later, right? And also the logo is like the war between the land and the sea.
It's a terrible title, though, isn't it? We know that.
Yeah, yeah. Very strange logo, though. All right, before we talk about Billie Piper, I just want to say one very quick word about Ncuti Gatwa, because there's been a lot of sort of talk about, oh, the BBC haven't done him justice. Oh, the BBC should have done more to keep him on. Oh, the BBC have kicked him out. Oh, the BBC this. Oh, Russell T Davies that. Oh, Bad Wolf the other. Oh, Sony. Oh, Disney. Oh, this. Oh, that. Oh, the other. The truth of the matter is, back in the original run, Doctor Who was a fairly low profile programme. We all loved it because we're fans. But to be honest, next to even something like Generation Game, it was a fairly low profile programme that jobbing actors did in order to have a regular income for, I don't know, if you're a companion a year, if you're a doctor maybe 3 or 4 years. They didn't do it for the kudos. They didn't do it for the recognition it was going to bring or the jobs that they were going to get coming after it. They did it because it was a regular income. These days, Doctor Who is a stepping stone at the start of a bright career. And they have been very good at spotting actors who are on the up. Now, not necessarily all of those actors have necessarily gone on to, absolutely stellar careers, but all of them have gone on. Every single one of them has gone on or has been already in the middle of, in the case of Christopher Eccleston and Jodie Whittaker, pretty damn good careers. Doctor Who's not a. Oh yeah. Sorry, but Capaldi's sort of at the end, so he's sort of a slightly different conversation. But you know what I mean? Even Capaldi, right? He's pretty well known, but he's not stellar. He wasn't like this massive Hollywood star or anything. The point I'm coming to is just Ncuti Gatwa. We have had him for actually 17 months, I think, or maybe actually because he came late. It's 15 or 16 months is all he did on Doctor Who, including a 3-month break, which gave us 2 series of Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. I think we're going to have to sort of try and reconcile ourselves to that's going to become the norm, because as things get faster and faster and the internet just gives these people more and more access to instant sort of fan response. So Ncuti Gatwa famously came in off the back of an Instagram post, right? Or whatever it was. It was Instagram, wasn't it? Rather than the normal BBC announcement. It's going to get quicker. Doctors are going to be around for less long.
Well, perhaps the answer to
And
that is not to go for the rising star, but to pick somebody who is a good, solid, British-based actor.
Well, why would you do that?
Well, because they're very, very competent and good at what they do, and have been for 60 odd years.
But if you want to
But they
sell
need
Doctor
to be
Who
able
to
to
a,
lead a series.
yeah, if you want to sell Doctor Who to an international
Yeah.
audience, which wasn't a consideration, they sold Doctor Who abroad, but that
Yeah.
wasn't a consideration. These days, it is about the money. It is about getting the income coming in.
And it's about going for someone young enough to actually survive the process. Because
Yeah.
watching interviews with Capaldi, he didn't just leave because he felt like he was leaving on a high. He was actively knackered after the production schedule.
Yeah, yeah.
We had
And
to have
David
knee
Tennant-
surgery.
David Tennant screwed
Three
his
of the
back.
doctors at least have had to have knee surgery.
Oh.
Oh, really?
And I think with Capaldi as well, it was a question of new showrunner coming in who wanted a clean
Well,
slate.
Yeah.
Well, and also Peter Capaldi wasn't exactly treated all that very well when he was there, but that's a different conversation. Billie Piper, then. I mean, there are sort of several prongs to this conversation, one of which is who exactly she's playing, and another of which is why she's there in the first place. I think I might start with that. I had a thought after we finished recording the other night, and actually we've heard a couple of rumours since then, which kind of bear the thought out that I had. And so here's the thought I had. So they've been waiting to find out what happens with this Disney thing. And actually, from what I gather now, I think nobody was really expecting the Disney deal to go on, but without a definitive answer, they didn't want to move in case it did. Because there were changes at the top at Disney after the contract was signed, but before the deal actually kicked in, which meant that the person in charge of, paying the money over to the BBC to make Doctor Who was not exactly doing so gladly, from what it sounds like. And so I think it was always on the cards then that Doctor Who was going to leave, if you knew that. But obviously they've not been able to go ahead until they find out. And so we've been in this situation where we're waiting to find out what happens. And so are they, because if they weren't, they would have just pressed go already. So we know that they were waiting to find out what happens. I mean, this is why presumably why Ncuti Gatwa has left. Because when you're at the start of a stellar career, you don't want to be hanging around waiting to find out what happens on one job when you could be doing two or three others. And so they've come to some mutual agreement that he goes earlier than probably they would have hoped, but they've had 2 good years out of him. And so this is the thought that struck me. If they're waiting to find out exactly when they can go ahead, it's difficult to actually cast somebody, especially if they only found out fairly recently from Ncuti Gatwa that he was going, and they had to, if they wanted to do a regeneration at the end of this episode, they had to get it in the can pretty quickly so they could put the special effects on it, so that they could grade it, so that they could do the music, so that they could do the editing. It had to be done in a bit of a rush. So you've got two choices. The two choices are regenerate to nothing, which is kind of what we were expecting when we first heard that Ncuti Gatwa was leaving back in January, or you can regenerate to somebody that you can put in to either carry on potentially, because it is a good casting choice, I think, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So you can get Billie Piper and say, look, come and do Doctor Who. We'll start with just one. If you want to do more, great. We'll talk about that, but we need it done in a hurry. Are you prepared to do just one? If she says yeah, great. Get her in the studio, get that bit filmed, and then you can, at that point, say, right, exactly how are we going to do this? But, and this was the thought I was having, the way I see it is you get Billie Piper in to do a special, or if it's like 2009, maybe 2 or 3 specials, something like that, to fill the gap before you get your next permanent doctor in, once the situations are all resolved and you know where you stand and you know what you're making and you know when you need people, because you need to know when you need people if you're going to give them contracts to come and make something. So I think Billie Piper comes in, she probably just does Christmas 2026, or maybe a summer special 2026 followed by a Christmas special 2026. And then the full-time new Doctor comes in at the start of the next series, series 16, in 2027. That's the way that's the thought that struck me on Saturday night after we finished recording. And we've
Well,
heard a couple of...
she's not the sort of actor you were describing to lead. I mean, yes, she's an actor to lead a series, but she's not right at the beginning of a stellar career. She's in full flow of a very solid British-based career. She's not a Hollywood star. She's someone quite like I was describing who we ought to have. Someone in the Billie Piper mold, someone who is very well known in this country, got a lot of experience, good solid actor.
And
Perfect.
that's why she comes in and does a one-off and done like John Hurt.
Very likely. Very
Yeah.
likely. Very likely.
So ahead of them getting the new rising shining star for the next series. Probably that's how I saw it. And yeah, I think she becomes the next in a line of, I mean, I'm going to throw the names out, and there are different contexts for all of them, but Paul McGann, John Hurt, second David Tennant and Joe Martin have all come in and done a bit to fill something in before somebody else comes along permanently, essentially. And so I just think Billie Piper probably is the next one of those. And it's kind of become a thing that we sort of alternate between full-time doctors and these little mayfly doctors that you can throw in between. I don't know. For me, that's great. I think it shakes the format up. And I like it when the format is shooken up. I don't know, any other opinions or thoughts about why she might be there, what might be going on?
I mean, the big question is, sorry, Ryan, you go first.
I just think, in a nutshell, thank you very much. I just think, in a nutshell, to sum this up, from my perspective, it's the high stakes second coming of Ken Dodd. Basically, J&T was trying to keep the show alive, bringing in people like that. So we end up with people like Ken Dodd. I think bringing Billie Piper in. Now, I know there's the money issues and everything like that, and I've nothing against Billie Piper, but I think they're also probably secretly praying to whatever God told Steve Moffat to solve the regeneration problem, because think about the hoola they'd have to go through in a narrative space to bring in things like this and have, like you said, the Mayfly doctors, because that would have really kind of screwed them if they hadn't had that brought in. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, and as you said, Billie Piper's in the mid-flow of her career. She's solid, not spectacular, etc. So she's well placed to do a few specials and then move on. But I just wonder how much, in the long run, how much interest are you going to have to generate in a show where the lead changes that quickly? Because we had the sort of Troughton rule unofficially for years, but you can't. How do you invest in a show? Sorry,
different times though, wasn't it?
True. I mean, but you had the Troughton rule, which is now kind of latterly becoming the Gatwa rule, which is like 2 seasons now rather than 3.
But
if it becomes a rule, I should say.
But I think what you've got to do is say, right, this is the way things are going to be. Am I on board with it or not? Because you're not going to change it by disapproving of it. And so what you've got to do, what I always do is say, right, Russell T Davies is in charge of Doctor Who. What would he do? Not what would I do? And it doesn't become about whether I approve of it or not, because if it's going to happen, we've got to live with it, right? So you might as well just accept it and get on board with it as much as you can. So I don't see the point of disapproving of decisions in that way, as you can argue after the fact whether it worked or not. I think there is no such thing as a bad idea when it comes to Doctor Who decisions. It's about how you execute it and whether you make it worthwhile. And so I think the Billie Piper thing. So when David Tennant was cast for the second time, I was really excited because I thought, oh, that's going to shake things up. And as it was, no, it was a really backwards looking step, because all they tried to do was recreate what had happened before in 2008. Now, if that's the way they go with Billie Piper, then that'll be sad. But I think the decision to cast Billie Piper in and of itself, especially if she is the Doctor, I think that becomes an interesting decision. And I think if she is the Doctor, that forces you to do something a bit different with her. You can give her the same character as Rose Tyler had, but if she's playing the Doctor, then she's going to have to do different things than Rose Tyler did. And so that forces you to do it in a different way. So I'm hoping that that's what happens with it.
So you're thinking Rose Tyler's attitude with the Doctor's level of intelligence kind of a deal?
Yeah, basically. I think
that could be really interesting. That could genuinely be really interesting, because we've got enough of a narrative hook into the character.
Yeah.
but then you've turned it on its head by giving it that expansive knowledge.
Because because fans would just look at it and say, "Oh, they've cast Billie Piper again." But actually, I think if you're the showrunner, calling up Billie Piper because you need a quick fix might be, "Oh, why don't I call Billie Piper? I need a quick fix. I know she's interested. Maybe we could get her to do it. Oh, I'm desperate." I don't think that's how somebody like Russell T Davies works. Russell T Davies is Mr. Marvelous. I think he goes, desperate times call for desperate measures, Billie Piper. But then he doesn't go, "Oh, it's desperate times, Billie Piper. I just need to get this done." I think he goes, desperate times call for desperate measures, ping, Billie Piper. And then he goes, "Fuck me, just think of the things you could do." And all of a sudden, his brain is racing away telling stories. Now, going back to what I was saying about David Tennant, that ain't necessarily a good thing. But the fact is, he's the kind of person who becomes enthused by these ideas rather than somebody who comes to these ideas because he's at the end of his tether.
The interesting thing now, apart, so the distinct, what makes it distinct from Ken Dodd is the mystery, is the question of who Billie Piper is playing, and that's evident because we've already had like debates about whether Billie Piper is going to play the Doctor or not, and an analysis of the moment to see if she comes from, so to speak, comes from behind Ncuti Gatwa and appears, or whether she actually morphs from Ncuti Gatwa, whether she's wearing his costume or she's just CGI'd onto his body. And I think all of those things, regardless of what the answer is. So Russell T Davies hasn't just cast Billie Piper; he's cast Billie Piper as a mystery character who you're going to want to see what the resolution will be. Something's happening with Billie Piper.
Well,
I want to go down a slight rabbit hole because I'll not pursue it at length, but this business about Ken Dodd. Now, this nonsense about JNT stunt casting and all that sort of thing, which really is utter nonsense. Because if you look at
he had someone you'd know in every single story.
If you look at
Why
the
wouldn't
history
you?
of Doctor Who, why wouldn't you? And it was at a time when the British film industry had absolutely collapsed. So these people who had been British film stars were turning up in all sorts of series. For heaven's sake, Morecambe and Wise were in the Sweeney, weren't they? I mean, it's
Yeah, but
Ken Dodd was an accomplished actor who'd worked with the RSC
what
by that
JNT
stage.
did was he attracted a few big names, which
Yeah.
is obviously in the spirit of things, but he never really cast them in. Oh, we've got Ken Dodd in the next episode. You won't believe who he's playing. It was always, we've
Absolutely.
got Ken Dodd doing a skit or doing
And
a
but
bit.
but he didn't allow him to be Ken Dodd. That's the tragedy of that appearance. That he made him play this very restrained, constricted role of the.
I mean,
Yeah, and he was the best thing in that story.
we're all big
Well, I
fans of
don't know.
Delta and the Bannermen here. Nobody is anti-Delta and the Bannermen.
I do
Have rock
I
for
do
life.
rather love Delta and the
I'm
Bannermen.
proudly anti-Delta and the Bannerman.
I do rather love it. And in the same story, you've got Stubby K, who is far bigger star than Ken Dodd ever was. Far bigger. And
I don't have a problem with stunt casting as long as you
No.
cast appropriately. And look at Nicholas
No.
Parsons in The Curse of Fenric.
Chris Parsons, absolutely.
I mean, the thing about it is JNT gets a name in there you recognise every single week. It's someone you go, "Ooh, he's in that.
Yeah.
Or they're in that. I'll watch that." And
Yeah.
and this is
You know
exactly what it's on a bigger scale.
Hang on, we've just had Rylan and we had
Yeah.
Rylan and Graham Norton, who were two of the best things in that episode. And then further back, who was it? It was in Shooty's first story.
Davina McCall.
Davina McCall
Davina
was great.
McCall, yeah,
She was
yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
Do you
Even
know
though she was
what?
playing
As
herself.
fans, we love to go, "Oh no, the viewing figures are down. Oh bloody hell, why has he cast Ken Dodd?" I mean, to try and get the viewing figures back up. What's your problem? What do you want?
Because he was a good actor
Yeah.
who had worked with the RSC.
And they're all great, but there is a distinction between a cameo and what he's doing with Billie Piper. Billie Piper's now framed as the series season one-off lead of the next episode, whether she's Rose Tyler looking for the Doctor or the Doctor. And I've gone like back and forth with what I think is the answer to that.
It's great publicity. I've not known Doctor Who be talked about like this since God. Well,
Power of
probably
the
since
Doctor.
50th, I would say.
I must say I feel more enthusiastic about this now than I have done for quite a long while. I thought that was a fabulous ending to the season. It really reinvigorated my.
You haven't felt like this excited since 1857, have you?
That's about right. Yeah, that's about then.
What was that?
That's
The release of the
3
Communist
minutes.
Manifesto?
That was 1848. That's 3 minutes
There
to
you go.
7. 1857.
Oh God, I don't want to know what you were doing before we started the call. Simon, I've just
Yes.
realised I asked Ryan, but you've not been on any of the reviews this year. So
No.
just give me 20 seconds on what you thought of this series of Doctor Who.
A mixed bag. The highs were very high, and the lows, wow, a matter of opinion, I think.
Oh, okay. Are you going to
What were
name the lowest and the
Yeah,
highest?
name a low and we can beat you up for it.
Tell us one of these
The
opinions.
lows were presentation wise. It was the whole thing of feeling like nobody was taking it seriously, or it was like very self-aware, very self-conscious that this was a silly sci-fi show, and they were messing around. And then suddenly it would get sorted out, and by the end of the season, we'd had one of the best episodes in the last 20 years.
Which was which? The very last one.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, me and Steve are on board with that, and John's
Okay.
grinning because he's Welsh. Okay, so
It is ugly.
It's because John's grinning because he's just had a new batch of coal delivered.
Welcome to the Casual Racism Podcast.
Yeah,
he's not
Ryan,
happy.
this is matchstick. He is just a complete bigot, so you know.
I am, it's true.
It does occur to me that what we haven't said is we're talking about what's Rose Tyler playing.
No, we've not got to that conversation.
Oh, no,
yet,
no,
Steve.
no, all right.
We're going to
okay.
have it in a minute.
Okay,
I
I
want
thought
to
that's
give-
what we were doing.
I want to give the context for that conversation
Okay.
before we get too deep into it.
Allez-y.
So there are two things I want to do before we get there. I want to repeat what they've said, the BBC and people at the BBC have said about it, and I want to show the precedents because there are people who say, "Oh, Doctor can't be Billie Piper. Why has that happened? That's never happened before." Well, okay. So in 1969, we learned that Time Lords get to choose what they look like. As long as everything's done in the normal run of things, which it generally isn't with the Doctor. But in 1979, we learned that Romana can absolutely choose to look like somebody who's just been in Doctor Who.
Burned off several regenerations in the process.
Yeah. I mean, this is by the by slightly, but nevertheless, it is part of the precedent for this. In 1981, Tremaz became the Master, and the Master had the face of a character who had just been in the previous story. In 1984, the Doctor regenerated into Maxil. In 2013, we discovered that the very last Doctor was going to be the fourth Doctor again, but a bit older. In 2013, also, we discovered that the Doctor can look like a tramp. No, not a tramp. It looked like somebody who he met in ancient Rome, right? In 2022, we can learn that the Doctor can choose to have the face that he had only 3 faces ago. In 2008, we learned that by throwing his fist into a jar, the Doctor can choose to keep the face that he's already got. And in 2025, we've got Billie Piper. Also, as part of the precedent for this situation, Martha Jones, Amy Pond, Clara Oswald, and Belinda Chandra are all companions who have exactly the same face as characters who have already been in the programme.
Yeah, throw Eve Miles into that as well. The
yeah, that's true,
Yep,
actually.
yeah.
That's true, yeah. And also she's been in Doctor Who. So there is plenty of precedent, both in the modern series and in the original run, for actors turning up as the Doctor, a companion, a regular, who have already been in the programme in a different part. I just see this as essentially a new spin of the same old thing, really. And if you're going to do the same old thing, I like it when you get a new spin on it. So, for me, casting Billie Piper as the Doctor, again, is potentially a really exciting thing. Now, obviously, it could all go belly up. We don't know till we see it. But I am certainly not in that queue of people to criticize the decision for whatever reason. I think it's potentially really exciting. I don't know. Anybody got anything to say on that before I get into discussing the things that they've said, and then we talk about what she might be actually doing?
For a brief moment, the word nepotism came into my head because I thought, oh, here we go, RTD just staying within his group of actors that he loves, all his, his fam.
But he's
that was
just
for
had Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson, right?
I know. As I say, it was a very brief moment, but it did kind of buy into the same theory you have, as he needed somebody quick, whether it's a caretaker doctor or whether it's something else. But I mean, the fact is that we have no idea how she's going to play this. I mean, that whole thing. Oh, hello. I mean, that wasn't something that Rose would say. I mean, I know that's me going on one line,
Do you
but
know somebody
equally,
else has said that's exactly Rose Tyler? But I'm
Apparently
more with
the
you. I don't think
apparently
it.
Okay. We
apparently
never
the
thought that.
moment said that
It's a bit more moment to
Oh
me.
when
yeah,
she was playing
actually,
the
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Well,
the moment's still around in Doctor Who lore. So what if it's the moment that the Doctor's turned into, sort of,
Ah.
in some weird fashion? It'd certainly
Although,
be interesting.
yeah, although the moment wouldn't be in the TARDIS, so you'd have to sort of jump through a few hoops to access that. But we know that Russell T Davies doesn't care, so who could? So
Do we know the
Essentially a
moment's not in the
super
TARDIS?
weapon. It's
it's left in
essentially
the
a super
barn, isn't
weapon.
it?
It could be anywhere.
I don't know. Do we actually? Sorry, I'm being picky, but I don't remember
You,
I
you
don't
wouldn't.
think the whereabouts of that wooden box, that
Uh,
ornate wooden
the,
box, is.
it's not the sort of thing you'd leave lying around, is it? If you were.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, I
So,
don't know, maybe, but then you wouldn't leave it lying around the TARDIS either. I don't know. I
Well,
don't
you
know.
might take it and throw it into the heart of a neutron star or something,
well,
or
God
some
knows there's
sort.
enough
It's
things hanging onto the
sentient. You
TARDIS. You've got the
can't do
Sutek hanging onto
that.
it now. The moment.
But this is Russell T Davies, and again, I go back to what would Russell T Davies do, and it's would he choose to regurgitate a technical thing from a story from over a decade
Well,
ago
yeah,
at
yeah.
this point, or would he choose a character who was in the two of the sort of 3 or 4 most successful years of Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Probably the latter if he's going to do either of those things. So I don't think it's going to be the moment. Shall I get to the quotes then, and then we can sort of really dig into it?
oh, can I
Simon, do you
just
want to
say
finish?
one
Yeah, yeah.
thing? One thing is it did occur to me, and this may be completely wide of the mark, is the fact that this is the first time the Doctor's regenerated and let or burst all his energy out into the universe, and that would make perfect sense to kind of draw the bad wolf in.
Or maybe. I mean, it did happen in Time of the Doctor, but it happened in a destructive way because that's how he killed off the Daleks on the planet Trenzalore.
I've got one really quick thing, one vibe that I got from it.
Go on.
I found, and this might just be Billie Piper's acting style, but I got a very strong Lady Cassandra possessing Rose Tyler vibe, the way she said hello.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
also
yeah,
fair.
very much so.
I think
Just
it
Well,
might
wanted
and
to-
just
that might
be
be.
it might just be Billie Piper now.
Well, yeah.
So it sounded
Yeah.
more like Billie Piper than Rose Tyler, because Billie Piper's, pretty posh, middle class,
Yeah.
And fun.
Swindon.
And she's now in her 40s as well, so
Yeah.
we all change. We're all different people at that. Sort
What
of
odds are
stage
people
of
going to
life.
give for the idea of the Billie Piper Doctor meeting the Billie Piper Rose
Oh, please not.
and having a split screen kind of thing? She meets herself,
I mean,
and she could potentially fancy herself. That would be legitimate.
Lawrence Fox is unemployed, and she'll have to have a master to play off of. Now that would get viewers. That would get her into the news.
I'm not sure it would. I don't
I'd say-
think he's got as much reach as he thinks he has, to be honest.
No.
I said elsewhere, Piper as the Doctor, Tennant as the companion. That's a cracking dynamic. I really want to see that.
Well, you
I'd
could
love
have
to see
two
that.
Pipers and two Pipers and a Tennant in the TARDIS.
And
We
a
could have-
partridge in a pear tree.
You could have
Actually, no, you could have two Tennants and two Pipers in the
Yeah,
TARDIS
yeah.
legitimate at the same time.
I think my head is about to explode.
I was going to say it sounds like a Pink Floyd album.
All right,
If you
let me.
If you include the comics, you could have three Pipers and two
Well,
Tennants
yeah.
as well.
All right, let me do the quotes and then we can get into it. So the caption at the end. Normally, if there's a new Doctor Who coming on board, the caption at the end will read, and introducing X as the Doctor. This time you had Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, then Ncuti Gatwa was replaced with Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, and then it says, and introducing Billie Piper, but there was no as the Doctor. So it did follow the standard format for and introducing X as the Doctor, except that the words as the Doctor were missing. So it's interesting that they chose, if they were trying to throw us off, clearly they do by not including the words as the Doctor, but they don't want to throw us off too much. So they stick to the basics of the format and just miss out the word. In the press release, the BBC have just said just how and why Billie Piper is back remains to be seen. Russell T Davies obviously said, but quite how and why and who is a story yet to be told. And Billie Piper basically repeats the same thing, but who, how, why, and when, you'll just have to wait and see. In other words, they're all teasing this thing up. And then we've got to take into account, obviously, a lot of people have pointed out what does happen on screen. And I think there are sort of certain contextual things about what happens on screen that you have to take slightly into account as well. Yes, ordinarily, when they do the regeneration, you film the bit with the old actor, you put the special effect on afterwards, so you get the new actor to stand in the same position. Then you put the special effect in to sort of cover over the morph between one and the other. Normally, you've got several months to do that. This time, they had a few weeks to do that. And not only that, but they've got a new version of the special effect to play with. So I don't know if anybody really noticed, but that special effect, although ostensibly it's the same thing, was quite significantly different. So it was also very much upgraded for 4K, which we have seen before, to be fair, but it was quite a different version of that special effect. And so they had to take that into account as well and do a quick job. And so I think the morphing bit probably wouldn't have happened quite the normal way anyway, because that's the bit that takes the time to get right. So I think fading Ncuti Gatwa out and then fading Billie Piper in the middle of the fire was probably the best they could do anyway. I wonder. I wonder if they said, right, okay, we're just going to have to go ahead with it like this. And Russell T Davies said, oh, why don't I write that into the story and get everybody talking? Because that's what Russell T Davies likes to do. If something's slightly different from the norm, he'll exaggerate it out of all proportion behind the scenes in order to get people talking. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the driving factor behind it, but I'm saying this is how I see Russell T Davies's brain working. If he spots an opportunity to get people talking, he'll leap at it.
I think he's got one of those brains that works backwards from a punchline. I think I wouldn't put it past him to have come up with the idea of having two Ranis just to do the joke.
Oh yeah, maybe.
I don't care because it was brilliant.
So yours,
And of course, yeah, Anita Dobson as the Rani, Anita Rani, brilliant as well. It just writes itself, doesn't it? It's great.
so you're suggesting that because the regeneration didn't look
No,
like
I'm
it
saying
had
that's a
some-
factor. I'm not saying it's the driving
No.
factor.
But my view is it just most people watching it would see it just as a normal regeneration. So the
Yeah.
assumption
Yeah.
watching it straight out is Billie Piper is the Doctor.
Yeah.
So the press statements is designed to cast doubt on what we can see in our own eye with our own eyes.
Well, you don't need to troll the general public. You troll the
The
hardcore
fans,
Doctor Who
yeah,
the
fans.
ones who are talking, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, the idea that it's sort of going back slightly, the idea that it's a deliberate choice of the Doctors to turn into that is going to be a potential story hook. But the fact that she says hello there or whatever she says, is that going to be dismissed as like a regeneration fugue state where the Doctor's always a bit wacky the moment they regenerate, or is it fourth wall breaking? Hello, I'm talking to you. I'm going to be annoying you now because look, it's me. I'm back.
Well, no, I think she's talking to herself. I think she recognizes who she's turned into and is saying hello to herself.
It also feels like she's been given the absolute minimum to do in order not to reveal anything about
Yeah.
what she's wearing, doing,
Well,
performing.
we made it.
Like
Yeah.
she's basically been brought in as a face.
Which is odd because what Ncuti was wearing suited
I
a
think
female doctor down to the
She's
ground.
wearing it. She's wearing it, Steve.
Well, she's either wearing
I
it or
couldn't
she's
see
CGI'd.
that.
She's CGI'd on it. You can just about see the white,
Can you?
the
Oh, I
white
didn't
see that.
shoulders and the
Okay.
denim.
But the hello is to me that's very similar to when Jodie took over. It was brilliant, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a similar thing to that. I don't think it's
Yeah, it could also be not that she recognizes that she's turned into effectively Rose Tyler, but just recognizes that she's turned into a woman again and she's pleased about it. Oh,
Yeah.
hello, woman's body again.
Yeah.
I mean, and And the fact that if they'd have gone on and done the, oh, new kidneys, new teeth, whatever,
Mm.
that we joked about, that would have said, oh, she's definitely the doctor. But this is the thing. Russell
You
T
could get on
Davies,
dodgy territory there, couldn't you?
yeah, yeah.
Once she's turned into a woman's body.
But also, Russell T Davies knows that the vast majority of people watching are just going to see the regeneration and go, Billie Piper's the new doctor. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to mess with it that much. I think he's just going to put a twist on it for the fans so that it can be something new and different for them to talk about, and they can sort of wind themselves up ahead of seeing it about what exactly it might mean. But the same as when David Tennant came back as the 14th Doctor, and we had all this online discourse about, is he a real Doctor? Is he imagining it? Is it gone back in time somehow? Is it just a projection? Is he just pretending? All of these other... No, he was just the Doctor, and it was just the discourse. I think Russell T Davies has seen that discourse and said, right, let's lean into that discourse. But at the end of the day, I think 100% it'll still just be the Doctor, but with a twist. And so I wanted to talk about what I think the twist will be, but I want to know what everybody else thinks. Do you think it'll be the Doctor? Or do you really honestly think that that somehow Rose Tyler has turned up in the middle of a regeneration looking for the Doctor? Because I just don't see how that physically happens.
Don't underestimate the dimension cannon. Yeah, strange
Yeah, yeah.
properties.
I mean, it's Russell T Davies. He could throw that in, but I just cannot see him doing it.
I can see it. I can see Billie Piper can hold an episode, a special by herself,
Yes.
without it being the Doctor. And the idea of the kind of the hunt for the Doctor does kind of appeal. I mean, that is an interesting story that could be told.
But that would be a hunt
So-
for the Doctor if the Doctor's gone geographically missing and you're looking for the Doctor.
I think if she was playing Rose Tyler, they would have said that because just as much as oh blimey, who's Billie Piper playing, an even bigger splash is Billie Piper returns as Rose Tyler, who you loved 20 years ago or
I
whatever.
don't think so. I think
You don't
Billie
think so?
Piper, Billie Piper returns. You've got the best of both worlds. She looks like she might return, but as the Doctor, she looks like she might return, but people are saying, "Oh, it's Rose Tyler," but it's Billie Piper. She's got the sort of recognizable name that you can just say Billie Piper is in the next thing, and that's as a mystery character. But I think it's 50. I don't know. It's either
I should be
I
very
think-
disappointed if she's
Yeah.
not the Doctor. I have to be honest.
I
Yeah,
think and
yeah.
introducing it's a new character, whether it's a new Doctor, whether it's some mysterious being. But when they used and introducing David Tennant back on Power of the Doctor, he's playing a new Doctor. So I think introducing does mean new character.
Yeah,
I don't know,
new
though.
Doctor.
It's a deliberate omission, though. Either way, it's a deliberate choice.
Yes.
Like, we don't know if Billie Piper is, if the Doctor is deliberately choosing to look like Rose. So it's implicitly some form of trolling either way, because he knows. I mean, I'm going to. Does anyone here think that Russell T Davies doesn't know who Billie Piper is playing? That he's just cast Billie Piper and
No.
then he's gonna figure out?
Of
Sorry?
course he knows.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a deliberate omission. But the thing is, so the mystery is being artificially generated in that sense, because casting
you
Billie
know what?
Piper is somewhat insular in a very positive way. It's insular.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what I'd like to know? I'd like to know if the words "as the Doctor" were ever on that screen and they took them off, because I would absolutely 100% believe that Russell that it said and introducing Billie Piper as the Doctor, and Russell T Davies looked at it and said, "Oh, get rid of as the Doctor. That'll get people talking." 100%,
Yeah.
I can believe that.
Well, yeah, we're talking 1980. No, Luke, I am your father. And then we spent the next 3 years having the discussion about whether he was the father or not, or whether he was lying. Oh, he's
Yeah,
Darth
yeah.
Vader, he lies. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and you've got it, haven't you? If we're 2 years till the next series.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Russell T Davies knows this is what gets people talking. So this was my theory about what it might be, I suppose. And I'm not suggesting that I think this is what it is, but I think it might be something along these lines. So, and I said it in our WhatsApp, but I'll say it out loud for the listener. I wonder if the explanation for it will be that because the Doctor always regenerates in or around the TARDIS, and it's become relatively explicit over the years that the TARDIS is somehow involved in the process. Maybe not always with the other Time Lords who do it on Gallifrey, but because the Doctor does it elsewhere, it always needs to be near the TARDIS so the TARDIS can essentially look after him. And we know that Time Lords can choose their faces, but we know that it doesn't work like that for the Doctor because presumably he's doing it away from Gallifrey. But the TARDIS presumably also helps with that too. And so several times now, as I said before, we've seen variations on a face gets chosen, whether the Doctor is aware of the fact that they're choosing that face or not. I wonder if the TARDIS just remembers Rose Tyler being important because she absorbs the sort of heart of the TARDIS and says, right, Doctor, we need to get you back to basics. So what we'll do is I'm going to give you the face and the personality of Rose Tyler. So you will be the 16th Doctor with the face and the personality of Rose Tyler, just to remind you about who you are and back to basics. And then you can regenerate on and become the next Doctor. I don't even know if that would get mentioned on screen rather than just alluded to, but I reckon something like that. I reckon it will turn out to be a deliberate choice to have a Rose Tyler Doctor, but that it will still be the Doctor.
So I think we know that Russell T Davies has written more scripts than just the 2 seasons that we've seen. We know that the expectation was Ncuti Gatwa was going to be in the 3rd season because of Saint Blue Peter, which was cut out. So presumably the scripts Russell T Davies has written were intended for Ncuti Gatwa. So I would imagine, economically speaking, he wouldn't want to change them that much. So I think the Billie Piper thing, I think, would be more likely for a few specials, and then there'd be an attempt to get back on track with a Ncuti Gatwa-esque Doctor that can continue rolling with the RTD already written scripts and just, get rid of a few emotional bits and a few happy bits.
Is there a real reason why none of us are entertaining the idea that she's now the Doctor?
I am. I think she absolutely could be the Doctor. Certainly.
I'm with you, Steve.
I'm 100% she's the Doctor, pretty much.
Yeah, I'd put 20 quid down that she'd do a couple of seasons. Why not?
I mean, I'd like to see it, but I'm 50-50.
I just wondered, is there like an unspoken consensus that this is a Doctor that's really, really not sticking around? Like this is a couple of specials and gone?
No.
Well, only in my theory, I think.
Yeah.
That Russell T Davies was expecting to do series 3. A hiccup happened and he needs something to fill the gap. And so he calls on Billie Piper because he wasn't expecting to have to cast a new Doctor at this point.
There's one thing that makes me think that she's not sticking around, and it's that same fan thing of overanalyzing what's been said. And she used the line, "It's great to get back onto the TARDIS one more time."
One more time.
That's
right.
And on a practical level, how old are her kids?
Oh yeah, probably sort of like getting towards their teens or somewhere around that sort of age, I suppose. Maybe in their teens.
But you wouldn't be asking that if it was a male Doctor, would you?
No, that's fair. But
she's a single parent, isn't she? That's the only reason I asked.
She's a very rich single parent.
There is that.
But nevertheless, if you've got kids of school age, you probably... I mean, she has said she does not want to move back to Cardiff to make Doctor Who. That is something that she's explicitly said, which again feeds into the idea that maybe she'll go down for a few weeks, but probably not for several months. So, I mean, I'd like to see, I don't know, a summer special where she goes in and does something a bit frivolous like the Star Beast, an autumn special where she gets to have David Tennant as a companion for an episode, and then a Christmas special where she gets the sort of full-on bells and whistles regeneration into the actual new Doctor.
Have we absolutely written off a Christmas 2025 special?
Oh, I think not.
It's June. They'd have to be recording really quickly.
That might all be planned.
Get Chris Chibnall back to do one set in a garage. It'd be brilliant.
Although I think
it could all still be planned. It could all the plans to do that could be in place.
The rumor
we
is
don't know.
The rumor is that the rumor is that she's in one special for Christmas, presumably 2026, and that Stephen Moffat has written it.
Well, I don't know why you say presumably 2026, because I
Yeah.
mean we've had it before where they've started filming in the summer and it's been ready for Christmas. It's been tight, but they've done it.
Yeah, but not. I don't think recently because with
Well,
4K and everything,
Husbands of River Song, was that
that's a
It's
the
Doctor
decade ago,
Mysterio.
Steve.
The
Put it
rumor
up.
I
Mysterio.
the
Doctor
rumor I
Mysterio? Okay,
the rumor
fine.
I saw earlier today, which we all saw, was shooting in September for Christmas
Very
2025.
tight, very tight.
Yeah,
Oh, I've got a parcel being delivered. Hang on a second.
he means he's going to have a shit.
Oh, hi there. I'm on the
Is it-
phone.
That would
so
be him
just-
delivering. He's delivering a parcel.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
right,
yeah,
thanks.
yes,
Well,
cool.
it's his job.
Yeah, he's like,
Cheers.
these postmen never rest.
Thank you. Cheers.
Oh, he's so nice. He's so nice to the delivery people.
I know him.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
They all know
knows.
they've got a psychic link, all these postmen, all these delivery people.
Well, he's every.
Is it the rampant vibrator 5000 that you've got the next upgrade?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
But no, he used to
I'm
be doing
looking forward to the unboxing.
he used to be doing the every parcels where I was doing the post, so I know him pretty well.
Ah, okay.
Right, what were you saying while I was collecting the parcel?
I have well, it's a half theory based on this idea that she might be temporary, and the idea of, as you said, the TARDIS has patched her up or whatever, and we've got a very deliberate countdown on this Doctor. Like the Doctor knows this regeneration's not going to last; it's a patch-up job until quote unquote the real Doctor comes along, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so each special is a ticking time bomb each time, and she's got to achieve something to ensure that the next Doctor happens. Because they've not done that, it would make it, it would give it a definite arc. It would allow people to say, right, well, this is the Billie Piper era. I'm coming in and watching this bit because I'm interested in this story, and it does give you the tension. Now, obviously, we know she'll succeed, etc. But this idea of we've got a Doctor that absolutely knows they don't have long to achieve a certain goal, which I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think has been done before, particularly.
No, it would be like, and again, I keep going back to this. Russell T Davies has seen what the other showrunners have done, and Russell T Davies saw that Stephen Moffat made a decision late in the day to make Matt Smith the last Doctor and have the sort of turn of the regeneration cycle. And so you never really got that tension about what would happen at the end of the regeneration cycle. So this could be Russell T Davies's attempt to do something that would fit in with that.
And if you
And
want to get
also-
really,
Oh no, go on.
I was just gonna say, if you want to get, if you wanted to do something very geeky for the hardcore Doctor Who fans, you tie it into, you do a flashback bit and you tie it into the way the Time Lords gave the Doctor those regenerations. Like it's a ticking time bomb thing. If they're never not around or something, the Doctor at some point will come up against a full stop of this new cycle, and is frantically trying to do something to save that and kick off a new one.
Or just keep it really simple. Opening shot of the special, the TARDIS materializes, Billie Piper comes out, something's happening, and she needs to get it fixed. And she looks down at her hand, oh, I'm still regenerating.
Hmm.
And then you just constantly get reminded every 20 minutes, oh, I'm still regenerating, and do it like that. And again, I keep saying Russell T Davies listens to this podcast. I'm sure he doesn't, but oh my God, I have not spoken several times on this podcast about what he could have done in 2009. Journey's End, he could have actually had David Tennant regenerate into the new Doctor in the middle of Journey's End and still have David Tennant there, but instead of two Tennants, you've got Tennant and, as it turns out, Matt Smith. And I said that given the 15-hour rule that he introduces in the Christmas Invasion, the specials between Journey's End and the End of Time could have been a series of one-off Doctors who each lasts less than 15 hours, so you don't interrupt the regeneration cycle, but you just get these Mayflower Doctors who are gone before they're fully formed. And so you could have had a series of Hugh
He
Grant.
extended that last season, don't forget, that 15-hour in Lux, where he's with the regenerative energy.
Oh, yeah.
When Doctor burns himself.
I'd heard that's what was going to happen on the 60th anniversary specials, the three Tennant specials. Somebody who I understood had heard things and knew things had suggested there was going to be three different Doctors over the three specials, one of which would be Tennant, one would be Helena Bonham Carter, and I can't remember who the other was going to be.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah.
yeah, and
Lawrence Fox.
no, it wasn't.
Okay.
It's
No,
Russell
it
T
wasn't.
Davies listening to the Blue Box podcast, is what it is.
Well, I mean, it's possible that that was an idea at one point, and then they decided to simplify things and just go with Tennant.
Well, Big Finish kind of did it, didn't they, with their 60th anniversary thing? Was it Once
Well,
and
and
Future, whatever it's
also,
called?
Yeah.
and also Unbound is kind of a version of
Yeah.
the same idea.
Yeah.
And if this Billie Piper thing is just one special and then you move on to the actual proper next Doctor, it's exactly the same thing, but just one person. I mean, it's nothing to say, actually, that you couldn't have a special with Billie Piper and a special with Hugh Grant and a special with, I don't know, Bill Nye, and then you get the new regular Doctor because you've just had three quick Mayfly Doctors in succession. And wouldn't that bring in the publicity and get people interested and watching to see the one episode in which Hugh Grant is going to play Doctor Who
This
properly?
this would be what, not Dimensions in Time, the other one, what was it? The
Curse
one
of
that
Fatal
Moffat,
Death.
Curse of
Yeah, yeah,
Fatal
yeah.
Death.
But again, Russell T Davies watches what the others
Yeah,
have done and says,
that's
"Yeah,
right.
I can do that. I can do it my way."
I want the Jim Broadbent Doctor. That's
Here's a thing to put the cat amongst the pigeons. What do you think the reaction would have been if instead of Billie Piper, he'd chosen to bring back the Eighth Doctor?
Oh
Oh
well, a
well,
certain
Matt would have been
section of
happy.
a certain section of fandom would have been having quiet little
I mean,
orgasms in a corner,
I-
wouldn't
Yeah, I
they?
was just thinking the exact same thing. It would have
Yeah.
been a tiny percentage would have been ecstatic, but and everyone
Yeah.
else would have been scratching their head.
I think
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
have been.
that's why Russell Gears wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But he could be a Mayfly Doctor though.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That would be a
if-
nice
yeah.
one for.
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't have had the doubts about the identity of the Doctor in that point, and you'd have to sell the mystery a bit harder.
Oh, but
If
then you could
Paul
have the
McGann is
doubts
the
about,
failure.
oh, is this actually the next Doctor, or is it the return of an old
yeah,
Doctor?
yeah.
Because that's the conversation we were having with David Tennant. Again, that was part of that conversation, wasn't it? And no, it was just the next Doctor.
And of course, we've had the Richard E. Grant Doctor has made canon, haven't we? Over the last couple of years, haven't we? So
Although
he's
forgotten this year.
forgotten this year. Yeah.
Gone-
Well, that
gone
could
the
have
way
been
of
preparation
gone the
for
way of Mavity.
absolutely. Yes,
Well,
that could have been in preparation for something even bigger, though, couldn't it?
You can bring Tom Baker back, even. Bring the curator in. Bring the great
don't
curator in.
honestly
for-
think I honestly don't think you can.
I mean,
No,
you
no,
can
no, I
have
know,
stuff-
I'm being silly,
But
but
you
but
just-
but the
you
great
just-
curator is foreshadowing all of this. We know he's going to go back over his old faces, so
Yeah.
Pump,
Sky's the
eight
yeah.
limit.
pump 8 ounces of cocaine up his nose, and he'd be
That's
able
it.
to do a Christmas special just about.
He would fly to Cardiff, yeah, without a plane.
All right. I guess that's the conversation, isn't it? Unless there's anything else that anybody wants to bring up. But I guess I've got one final question to ask around in a circle before we go. And I guess we've sort of talked over this, but I've not got sort of definitive answers. And I'll go first just because I know what question I'm about to ask. Are you happy to see Billie Piper, Ncuti Gatwa regenerate into Billie Piper? Me, yes. As long as it doesn't turn out to be just going back to the old well, as long as there's something new or something interesting comes out of it. Yes, very definitely. Yes, I'm happy to see it. John.
Yeah, just give me a good story out of it. As you
Yeah.
said, if it's got something, I've seen people moaning, "Oh, it's just going back to the past. It's the show eating itself." Not necessarily.
Ugh, people say that. I
Balls.
mean, oh,
This
God.
series is, the whole this era has been about reframing Doctor Who as essentially a fantasy series.
It's
I want to see
amazing.
what happens in that context.
I'd love to see the Venn diagram between the people who every year go, please let it be the Rani, and please stop eating yourself, Doctor Who. I'd love to know how big that sort of section of people who say those two exact things would be.
It's a circle.
Psychological bulimia is what it is.
Yes, yes. Go on then, Ryan, while you're there. Happy to see Billie Piper?
I am. I really, really want this version of Billie Piper, whoever she's playing, to meet Rose Tyler's mum, just to see the new dynamic and the confusion. That's what I really want. As long as they do that, I'm happy.
That would be fun. Steve?
Definitely. I disagree with you slightly. I think that when they brought Tennant back, they did do something interesting because they made him a very different Doctor the second time round. And I think Russell would do exactly the same again, make it very different from what Billy's been in the series before. Great
Well, I hope
actor.
so,
Let's
yeah.
have her. Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm relieved. So to use the phrase, I'm just glad it wasn't a regeneration to black, so to
Yeah,
speak,
yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
which Steve said on BBC News and does sound very racist, but it isn't.
It's been threatened for years. That's looming over all of Doctor Who now.
I know, and it became clear to me as I was watching it how pointless it would be, how you know how there's just no reason of just not having a sort of an outcome for a regeneration. And I'm just really glad that RTD found something to put up on screen.
It's
Not
There
not
were
weird though, isn't
several.
not
it?
not describing Billie
There,
Piper as something.
there
Um,
were several points during that regeneration where the screen was filled with light and all the rest of it, and I was dreading the fact that they would
yeah,
finish there. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it could
yeah.
have finished at so many points there, couldn't
And and the Billie Piper's hair really works with that new regeneration effect as well.
it?
It's odd that a
Hmm.
show that thrives on cliffhangers, no one wants that cliffhanger in particular. That's the one cliffhanger no one wants in Doctor Who.
Well, the regeneration to black, just like the cancellation crisis and the pteroleptals, is one of the legacies of Eric Saywood's Doctor Who. Simon, Billie Piper, good, bad, indifferent.
Oh, I think it's positive. I just hope, that it's a natural performance that it's not forced, and she just puts a huge chunk of herself into it, like all the best doctors have.
And the teeth are all right.
Yeah.
I don't know
Hmm.
why people go
New
on about her
veneers. That's
teeth.
weird.
All right, and that's where we'll call it a night. Until we do this again, which will be our retrospective of Series 2, I was JR.
I was John.
I was mad.
I was Ryan.
I was Simon.
And I was Steve.
And actually, the next episode is going to be our Who is Doctor Who 4 before our Season 2 retrospective, but they're both on the cards. We'll speak again soon.